Hey guys, it's the new year, so I just wanted to come and talk about one of my favorite biblical principles, and that's fasting. Constantly throughout the year, we hear about fasting, and a lot of churches do the Daniel's fast coming up in January, but there's a lot of unanswered questions. Because fasting is so dear to me, I wanted to go ahead and break it down. What is fasting? So fasting is sometimes used as more of a diet term that people just kind of apply when they're not eating for the day. But biblical fasting in the spiritual sense is when we're specifically taking out time to be intentional and not eat food, or sometimes we do eat food but we just go with certain restrictions in order to seek God and put Him first in our lives. While we're on a fast, it just makes us more intentional, because as we're giving up food in our bodies in a physical sense, we're getting more food spiritually. What does fasting do? So the first time that I decided to fast was back in, I believe it was 2013, and my church that I was at was calling a corporate fast, and at first I was really hesitant because all I focused on was the fact that I wasn't going to be able to eat chicken and I wasn't going to be able to eat cake. But then, as I realized the situation I was in my life, I was like, okay, if I really want to see a breakthrough, I really want to be seeking God, and I really want to be putting Him first, maybe this is something that I should give a chance. So I did just that. I followed the instructions of the Daniel's fast, and I decided no meats, no sweets, no added sugar, just for 21 days. So then I could really focus, prayer journal, get into the Word, and see what God had for me for the coming year. It was a surprise for me just how much fasting really changed my life. Very quickly I saw myself falling in love with God, falling in love with His Word, and really able to pay attention and receive revelations in a way that I never had before. I think that with fasting and prayer, something about putting down what satisfies us just makes other areas gratify. It's almost like when they say someone is missing one of their five senses. Now everything else is heightened. So by putting aside your body and not eating whatever you want whenever you want, your spirit man is heightened. Tony Evans, in a message that I really love, I'll have to leave the link down below, he references 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, I believe verse 23, and it talks about how we are spirit, soul, and body. Every single word of the Bible is put so intentionally, and even the order of that is very intentional. That we're spirit, soul, and body, and that's the order in which we're supposed to operate for the biggest success. But more often, we're run by our emotions, which is our soul, or we're run by our body and our physical appearance. And that always just ends up with us sliding and cutting corners at our spirit man. As we head into 2019 and we say this year is going to be different, we say it's going to be greater, we say it's going to be better, we can't really say those things if we're going to leave God out of it. So just to heighten your discernment and to just get into a place where you're humble before Him, I really feel like a fast is something that you want to incorporate. So the reason that we fast is because it's one of those things that God gives us as far as a tool of spiritual warfare. Whenever it comes to us as humans, we were made by the Lord. So when it comes to how we're supposed to operate, how we're supposed to do things, we need to be going to His Word that He gave us to guide us. We see fasting as one of those things multiple times in the Bible that people use when things get serious. When Moses received the revelation of the Ten Commandments directly from God, it was while he was fasting. His spirit man was built up, strong, and he had that intimacy with the Lord to hear directly from Him, and he was able to write it down and spread it to others. We also see that Jesus fasted while He was in the wilderness. We see that Esther fasted when she got her purpose but was unsure and needed to step out on faith. Constantly in the Bible, we're seeing example after example as people of God are using fasting and prayer as a means to get to an answer or to strengthen their faith. A key question: how to fast? So the Bible kind of gives us a couple of options, because we see some people in the Bible fasted where they drank no food and had no water for a set amount of days. We also see that some people do just water. And a really popular fast that a lot of churches do, especially in the month of January, is called the Daniel's fast, which is the no meats, no sweets, no added sugar type of fast. So you can really kind of go with either your church or just your own convictions on what you need to be fasting from. I would say that if you're fasting with your church and your corporate body, it's important that you follow whatever guidelines have been spoken to your pastor, whether that be the Daniel's fast or some other kind of variation. If this is a different point in the year that you're watching this video and enjoying it, I would say that the fast that you decide to do has to be right for you and right for your situation. There has been times where I am super desperate, and I know that I just need to go water only for 24 hours or maybe a few days as I'm seeking the decision. And obviously that's pretty easy to follow. The Daniel's fast is kind of like what I keep saying, no meats, no sweets essentially. So it's a plant-based fast. You're only eating things from the ground that are natural, aside from honey and some of the sweeter things. So I'm actually going to put a guide down below just to a link that has some basic things and some basic foods that you're able to have on the Daniel's fast. Mainly, I know for myself, I eat a lot of black beans, I eat a lot of brown rice, and a lot of veggies with like fruit and things like that in the morning, kind of like for a breakfast meal. So if you want to do a partial fast, a Daniel's fast, like I said, it's really kind of up to you, and I would say how bold you want to be. But there's no incorrect way to fast as long as you're taking something out and putting something in. And by putting something in, I mean that time with the Lord. A lot of times people are able to put down the food, but they feel like they don't get any results, or they don't feel a spiritual change or a spiritual shift, and then they just feel like fasting doesn't work, or it doesn't work for them, or it's an outdated practice. But really, a lot of times, I've even seen in my own journey, the problem is sometimes we focus so much on the fasting and the meal prep that we miss the whole point of getting closer to God and spending more time with Him. So a really easy way to make sure you stay focused on the fast is to kind of think of everything as like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner type of structure. So the same way that we feel like our body, our physical body, needs 3 meals a day while you're on the fast, and even in general, I would make sure that your spirit man gets those 3 meals a day. So the first thing, when you wake up in the morning, make sure that you're praying. If you have a devotional, that's awesome. So then you can kind of go along with that guide in the morning. During your lunch break, while you're not eating or while you're following the Daniel's fast, instead of scrolling on Instagram or hanging out with your coworkers, I encourage you to read a few chapters in the Bible. And then at night, again before bed, make sure you're spending some time with the Lord in prayer, journaling, and just really keeping your eyes stayed and focused on Him. I've had fasts that have been amazing, like amazing breakthroughs, amazing peace, amazing fruits of the Spirit. And I've had fasts that I just couldn't finish and just didn't feel very purposeful. And the main difference was what I was doing in my spiritual life and in that time. So while you're, at Walmart and meal prepping and those things, like I said, keep the main thing the main thing. There's no fasting results without prayer and without God. I hope on your fasting journey as you go into the new year, or whatever time of year it is, that was really insightful as to why and how. Definitely check out my other videos on fasting as to why fasting sometimes fails, Fasting 101, and you can always check out the Pure Jess app for some more fasting tools. Be great today, guys. My last and biggest, most important tip is something that I said in my last video and touched on a little bit before, and that's putting God first. The success of this fast, as far as it being something